Hello everybody, my name is Coolblue and I'm bringing out this video of me talking about some board games, and today I'm going to be doing a top 10 list on small but mighty games. So let me go and start the music in the background here. And starting off very first, wow, words. Starting off on the first thing I'll say. The 10 small but mighty games are just games that are small. I am a huge fan of small box big games. I have a whole series on YouTube called Small Box Big Games. You should definitely check out the Small Box Big Game series. I played a lot of small box games, and small boxes in like smaller than the box is something like Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. That's the only game I can look at that can give reference. So smaller than that, or smaller I should say. But that said, all the games I'm going to be talking about today are actually in this bag, which is a little lunchbox by Igloo that I've had for years. And all 10 of the games, plus a lot of sums, are in this bag. So just to kind of give an idea of what I mean by small, I mean games that can fit in this bag and kind of have a game night in a lunchbox type situation. So I'll get this all to the side here as we pull up the games. But let's go and start with the games, starting off with the first 3 games, and these are not in any particular order. I just want to clarify, these are not in any particular order. These are just kind of in the bag, and I'm just going to pull them as we go along. Although I will say, no, yeah, these are not in any type of order. The last one's kind of a one that's required to be on the list, so I guess that's the only order. We'll start off with a pack of games. So this is a Nintendo DS Nintendo DS case that I had that happened to be able to fit the pack of games. And number 1 through 3 is actually in here. And like I said, these are in the order of the way I'm going to pull them out, not necessarily in the order of what I would rank them. So starting with the first one on this list will be Bus. So Bus is a very interesting game. It's small, it's the size of a pack of gum. It can fit inside of this, which can fit inside of there, which is really cool. But Bus is a game to where you're basically going around and you're picking up people from bus stops and you're dropping them off. So it's kind of a pick up and deliver type game, and actually 2 of the 3 that we're going to talk about from here are pick up and delivers. So you're kind of picking up and deliver. The cool thing about this game is that you kind of build a map out of the cards, out of the road pieces, and with that you're just kind of like driving along the road, and it's like really like kind of a neat flowing order fulfillment system, because you're picking up people from bus stops and then you're dropping off at certain places, and then the way you keep track of that is you kind of flip the car. It's like this really neat system. Well, I highly recommend watching a playthrough video or watching somebody explain how to play the game, because this game is actually pretty neat for how small it is and how much variety it has, or how much world I should say it gives you. It can play up to 3 players, which is also interesting. But one big drawback was one that kind of, once you get like 2 or 3 playthroughs, the variety kind of goes away, if there was any. It is a small game at the end of the day, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. Kind of expected. Next one is actually going to be Dig. This one is Dig, D-I-G, and Dig is very interesting because Dig is kind of I don't know how to explain it. The scoring system in this game is just, it always amazes me every time I play it. I play this game so many times, and every time I play, I'm like, wow, that scoring system is so cool. So basically in the game, you lay out all the cards that are inside this box, and then you have your little marker that shows your little dog, and you're walking down the street, you're walking down the yard, and you're digging up bones, you're trying to drop them off in bowls of the matching color, and there's movement restrictions when you're encumbered with bones. So because your dog, you're digging up bones and carrying them in your mouth. So if you're carrying 1 bone, you're going to move not as far as if you had no bones that you were carrying, and you can move much further. So it's like this really cool mechanism of like, yes, you can collect 3 bones of the color you're looking for, but you're gonna be moving 1 space a turn, which is very slow. So, or you can just collect 2 and then move 2 spaces a turn, or 4 spaces total if you dedicate all your turn, and you can do a whole bunch more. And it's a very, actually 6, sorry, because you get 3 actions. But it's a very cool, like, interesting game that deals with an action economy that's kind of very, very simple, very simplistic, but it has a lot of repercussions for how you play the game and how like robust the game is. And the score system is pretty cool. The only drawback is it's quite simplistic. You're literally you dig up the bone, you drop it into the bowl, and that's the entire game. I think that's a good thing, especially for a game that's small, that you can kind of play relatively quickly, and you can also teach people pretty quickly and move on, but some people might not like that. Alright, and the last one to talk about here is going to be Orc. So, Dig can play 4 players, 2 to 4 players. Bus is 2 to 3 players. And Orc is the last one. Orc is a 2-player game. And this game is a 2-player versus game. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to win more camps or collect more points than your opponent does. And you can collect points in a few different ways in this game. Way number 1 is to win the location. So there'll be, I think it was 6 locations. Is it 6? Yeah, I think you're fighting over 6 locations total. There'll be 6 locations out, and they're worth either 1 or 2 points. And you're basically trying to vie for those points. So those are the points you can get. And then depending on which camp you won, if you have matching pieces in your hand that match the color of camp that you've won, you also will score at the end of the game points for having them in your hand, which poses a very interesting dilemma in this game, especially a game this small, because that dilemma is, you know, you have to play the cards to the camp to fight for the camp. But if you play the card to one camp to fight for that camp, and then you score that color orc for a different camp, then the problem that you have is that, okay, yes, I won this camp and I got that 2 points, but if I would just held on to those 3 cards that I dedicated to fighting for that camp, since I won this one, I would have gotten 3 instead of those 2. But then the other question becomes, okay, if I let my opponent win this, will they have more points from their hand because they held on to some cards? And like you got this really interesting, like fascinating, like very crunchy, like dilemma on your hands. And it's a 2-player game. It's very simple, very straightforward. You're just kind of playing your little cards to the camp, and it has a trigger system that triggers when the fight happens or when it's evaluated. And I think it's phenomenal for a 2-player game. It has a lot of strategy, has a lot of tactics that you can throw into there. Like you can go for a strategy of not winning many fights, not winning many of the camps, but you hold onto a whole bunch of the orcs of those colors. So your hand just has, like, you know, 20 points in your hand. Yeah, you only got 2 points on the board, but 20 points in your hand, and that could be a game changer. So this game is like the more I think about it, the more I play it. Every time I play with my friends, it's just so interesting. The biggest drawback for the game, though, is that it's kind of easy to have a runaway winner, because it's 1v1. You know, if I win 5 of the 6 camps, then I probably won the game. So yeah, you can very easily have a runaway winner in this game. So that's the thing. Thankfully, it's a pretty short game, like maybe 20 minutes at best. Okay, so that's it for this one. The other games are kind of decent, I guess, but not for this list. So that was our first 3. So 1, 2, and 3. 1 was Bust, 2 was Dig, 3 was Orc. Moving on to moving on to number 4, which, going back over to the bag here, is actually right there on top. For Northwood. So for Northwood, I've been going on a little bit of a kick playing a bunch of For Northwood. For Northwood is a trick-taking game to where your goal is to essentially win tricks or win books, and you're playing hands. It's very, very straightforward of a game, but the kind of the repercussions and implications that it has being a trick-taking game are pretty involved, pretty expansive, pretty like, you know, engaging. And you can play, it is a solo game. It's not you can play a solo. It is a 1-player game that does trick-taking very well. And I'm not the biggest fan of trick-taking games. Like, I play a lot of spades in my life. I played some hearts. I played some clubs. I don't remember how clubs works, but all I can say is that because I played so many trick-taking games, just kind of in the, you know, the cards category of things, like the playing cards kind of thing category. Yeah, going for trick-taking games is not my thing, but this game I enjoy a lot. This game I've given copies to my friends. I've given a copy of this to my mom because she loves playing trick-taking games, and you know, they've had a blast with it, or at least I hope they've had a blast with it. At least they own it. Let me just say it that way. So it's this nice little small game, and it has plastic cards, which I think are pretty cool. I've done a few playthroughs of this game, so definitely go check out the videos for the playthrough. So I'm not going to explain too much about how that all works, but there's also a campaign mode in this game. And there's a way to change up the rules through that campaign mode. You can just kind of do a one-shot, or you can do a full season, or you can do the whole year if you really wanted to. And there's just so much variety in this game that I just can't stop gushing about just how much depth there is in variety. That said, because it's a trick-taking game, it's basically you either win this number or you lose, and there's no middle. And sometimes this game can be pretty brutal when it comes to the scoring, because you have to win exactly 3 or you have to win exactly 5, depending on the location you're going against. And because it's so specific with how many things you have to win, it can be pretty unforgiving when it comes to actually cashing in those points or evaluating at the end of the round. How did you do? So that's the thing that could be kind of make or break for this game. I mean, because you're playing solo, sometimes you say, well, I didn't really do that, and I guess you can try to play it that way, but overall, I think it's a very solid game for how small it is. Basically just a deck of cards with maybe a few extra cards added in. This was a community-made game too, so you could look up the original rules for the how to make your own version of this game out of a deck of cards. Try it out, see if you like it, and if you do, go ahead and pay the $15 or $16 to actually get this copy and enjoy. So for Northwood, that's number 4 on this list. Number 5 on my list is going to be, oh, I should go get the box. All right, let me go get the box for this one. I'll be right back. Number 5 is going to be Botanik. Let me get the box. Sorry. Okay, in the middle of a video, just getting up, walking away from my recording area. Yeah, number 5 on this list is going to be Botanik. So there's Botanik. Botanik is a game to where you're basically doing tile laying, and it's a very interesting. It's a 2-player game, I should say, 1 to 2 player. Oh, well, yeah, you can play it 1. There's a 1-player mode that I think is pretty sufficient. So I made a custom one, but inside this bag has all the pieces for that. And the cool thing about this game, besides me taking a sip of water, very stealth-like, as I call it out. The cool thing about this game is that it's very tight mechanics for how you earn things. Like literally, because it's a 2-player game, what you do does directly impact your opponent, and because of that, you have a situation to where you have to kind of make a move, and sometimes you make moves just to block your opponent, sometimes you make moves because you need to complete your own thing, and sometimes you make moves because you just decided that might be a cool move. So it has a very cool like tug of war going on between you and your opponent, and it's also tiling. So you're trying to build out these nice, beautiful looking contraptions, if you will, these beautiful looking pipe contraptions, and the way you place your pieces determines what your score will look like. And you're trying to make sure it all connects, and you have a whole bunch of things you're trying to do. You have a whole bunch of dilemmas that you're trying to put up with. So I think this game does give you a fair bit of dilemmas. I personally like the mechanic for unlocking the pieces. I'm not going to fully talk about how to do all that here. I'm just going to say if you want to check out more about it, definitely go check out my playthrough, my solo playthrough that I did of it versus the solo bot, which I forgot the bot's name. But I will say that the mechanic for unlocking the pieces, I love it. It's great. That's a really fun mechanic. One of the drawbacks for this game, one of the negatives for this game, would be that the tiles can just not be on your side. Sometimes you really need a certain thing to actually make your puzzle work, and you just never have an opportunity to get it. Either your opponent takes it from you, or ends up in a situation to where you just don't have time to put it out and take it. And that can be a bummer. That can be a bummer. But the main thing is that, just kind of in lieu of the game, you just kind of go with the flow. You adapt to what you have and what you can do, and you can fit it all in the bag. And I would recommend, because it's a tile laying game, put it all in the bag and it all fits. Yeah, I do not have the rule sheet, but because I know how to play, or if I really needed to, I could look up the rules on Board Game Geek. This is fine. So it all fits in a nice little canvas bag here. All right. Moving on to the next game. Next game on my list would be, oh yeah, Castles of Burgundy, the card game. And then, like I said, all these games that I'm pulling out of this bag, they normally live in this bag anyway, which is why this one looks all beat up and kind of rough around the corners there. Literally rough around the corners. It's because it literally lives in that bag. So that bag is where I keep those small games. But for Castles of Burgundy, the card game, I have not played a full game of Castles of Burgundy, the board game. I played a partial game on the app. And by that I mean I've played through the first 3 or 4 lines of the tutorial, and then I stopped for some reason. So I never actually played a full game of Castles of Burgundy, the board game. That said, I do have a few friends that I played Castles of Burgundy, the card game with, that are huge fans of Castle of Burgundy, the board game. And they've told me that Castles of Burgundy, the card game, is like a condensed, simplified version of the board game. So it kind of holds on to a lot of the elements of the board game, and it translates it very well to a very small, more condensed, more compact version. So if that's any, I'm assuming that's a glowing recommendation, considering that Castle of Burgundy, the card game, or the board game, is actually still really regarded amongst the board game community. And I actually have a copy on my shelf. Castle of Burgundy, the board game, was one of the first board games I actually purchased, along with Forbidden Island and all this other stuff, which is, I guess, not really relevant to the conversation. What I'm trying to say is that, if that's any indication that it's a good game, then hopefully I can help you. But for me, I just like this game a lot because it's very crunchy. It has a very competent solo mode. I think a solo mode is a little bit deterministic to some degree, but I still feel like I have a chance. I still feel like I can actually impact and influence the scoring conditions and how I win. But at the very least, it is a very, very, very fun game. Would recommend. I have a playthrough of it. It's one of my earlier playthroughs. I'm actually doing another playthrough here soon because I haven't played this in a while, at least on stream or on recordings. So I might revisit this one. But very fun game. Would recommend. Lives in my bag. It's a small box game, so it definitely goes on the list. All right. Next up is a game that is unfortunately nearly impossible to find unless you want to pay $40, $50 for it. But it's Sell to India, the board. Yeah, Sell to India. I was supposed to say Sell to India, the board game. Like there's a not board game. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, Sell to India. So Sell to India is a game that I kind of like this game a lot because one, it's very small, and then two, it really kind of brings out the exploration factor. So in this game, it's a 2 to 4 player game, and in this game you're essentially Castle Burgundy, the card game. I should go back. This is a 1 to 4 player game too. I got to be consistent here, but it's a 2 to 4 player game, and in this game you're trying to build yourself up to score the most points, and you can score points by basically having locations. You get points for having strongholds. You get points for having monasteries or churches, whatever it's called. You get points for having technologies. There's a lot of different ways to get points in this game. You can also just earn points by selling a bunch of stuff, being a merchant, and this game does have a pseudo point salad type feel to it. But I will say this game is really shines for me in how the exploration mechanic goes. So you're essentially moving from card to card, and when you're moving from card to card, you are virtually just kind of like exploring the card. And when you flip over the card, it reveals like a new possibly new market that you can go, some trade goods you can get. It gives you like a new stronghold you might be able to build on. It gives you a whole bunch of stuff. And the cards are kind of multi-purpose, multi-use, and it's very simple because everybody has cubes, and your cubes are either ships or merchants, or they're historians keeping track of your score, or they're accountants keeping track of your money, or they're not locked ones, or they're technology. It's a very cool like multi-use game that I'm a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of this. I'm very sad that it's not as widely available as it used to be back in the days. And I really hope that maybe AEG or whoever has a license for it is going to do a reprint of it, because I feel like it's a great game everybody should have, and it's very small. But exploration factor is really big on this one. You can also do some tech tree building on this one too, which I find quite fun. But unfortunately, the biggest negative for this game is that it doesn't really have much of a catch-up mechanic in Sell to India. You can very easily have a runaway winner, which is actually a theme for a lot of these smaller games I'm talking about right now, because you can have a runaway winner. Sometimes it's like, why do I keep playing if Timothy has 25 points already? Why am I still playing this? Like, just put me out of my misery, please. So that situation can happen. There's not really much of a catch-up mechanic, so a little sad. But honestly, especially when you play with a group, like I've had one game with a group that we played three games of this in a row. And by the time we got to the third game, because everybody kind of knew what they were going to do and how they were going to do it, and they understood the mechanics enough, we literally blazed through a game in like 20 minutes with a 4-player game, which I thought was really cool. Like kind of doing like a speed gaming thing. I think I lost pretty horribly in that because I wasn't planning well, but yeah, Sell to India. All right, number 8 on this list out of 10 will be Gentle Rain. And as I mentioned before, all the games are in this bag. I'm just re-mentioning it here because they're all small games. They all fit in the same bag. So Gentle Rain. Gentle Rain is a true chat while playing game. Gentle Rain is a tile laying game that can be played from 1 to as many as you want, really. I don't think it's really a player. Is there a player count on this? That just says 1+. It literally just says 1+. Hold on, let me get that over there. See the player count right there, 1+. So you and everybody else in the room. So Gentle Rain is a game where you're basically taking a tile and you're trying to, or you take a tile, you reveal a tile, and then you place it, and you're trying to match up flowers. You're trying to match up sets of four tiles matched based on their flowers, and it's a very difficult game to actually win with air quotes, but there's actually no winning in this game. You're just kind of scoring something. And if you want to have a perfect game in this game, you need to score, I think 27 or 21? I think it's 21 points, which is 1 point for every circle that you place out, plus the number of tiles you have left over. The highest I've ever scored in this game naturally, and when I say naturally, I mean just kind of playing it with a friend, just kind of focusing and trying to win. The highest I think I ever scored in this game was maybe 9, maybe 10, and that's by having all 8 of the discs pointed out or played, which is what your goal is, to get all 8 of those placed out. trying to get all 8 of those discs played out, plus having tiles left over, and I think that's 8 discs plus 2, so 10. That's how we got to our 10. Anyway, the point I'm trying to bring up is that this game is very, very not serious. This game is very unserious. This game is very non-strategic. This game is very turn your brain off, have a conversation with your friend, and then just kind of do a thing while you're sitting chatting. Like, this is a great game for conversations, as in you can legitimately have a very in-depth conversation while playing the game. So much so that when I did my review for this video, or sorry, when I did my review for this game, if you're going to check out the small box big game for this one, I literally played the game, I think I played it twice while I was doing the review, because it's just that straightforward of a game. In fact, if I wasn't trying to aim for a slightly shorter playtime on this video, I would be playing it right now while talking about it, but I'm not, because I want to try to stay under 30 minutes here. But that said, Gentle Rain is a very turn off your brain kind of play game. It is a game that if your goal is to win, as in if your goal is to score the most you can score in this game, you're going to have a very bad time. This game is literally, you flip from one stack of tiles and then you place whatever you have. There's no hold, there's no have a hand of cards, there is no swap a tile with another tile, there's no rotate a tile after you place it. It's literally just take a tile, put it down, and then see what happens. So because of that, if you really go into this game trying to win, trying to score 21 points, you're just gonna have the worst possible time. I've tried to play this game seriously with some of my friends after playing like a board game session, and when we tried to play seriously, we all were just frustrated the whole time because it's just so random. You can't do anything about it. So with that said, literally the less serious you take this game, the more fun it is. I put on this list for a small box big game, or sorry, small but mighty game, because I think it's a fantastic game. I think everybody should have a copy of this. This is like a put on your coffee table type game. All right. Enough of me gushing about that one. Moving on. Next up is going to be a classic coming out of the bag. Mintworks. Look at the Mintworks. Mintworks. First and foremost, I would like to say my formal condolences to what is it? Yeah, V24, which I think they changed the name to Plaquito. So RIP to them, to their company. To be honest, they made a line of games. Mintworks was the first one. Mintworks was fantastic. That's what I'm talking about here. And then they made 5 other games, and they got worse with each one. And to clarify, Mintworks for me is definitely a solid 8 out of 10. I'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second, but I have to pay a little more condolences to the company. Their second game that came out, Mint Delivery was a solid 4 out of 10. Like, I'm sorry, the game was not good. And then the one that came out after, Mint Cooperative was a very solid, I would say a modest 7. I'll give it a 7. It's like Pandemic, but in a small box, and I give it credit for that. And then the rest of them were just all over the place. Mint Control, I did a video of that. It was unfortunately not really it seemed like it wasn't play tested, it wasn't balanced. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, kind of ragging on the company that's no longer here with us. But I will say that I understand. I understand how that happened. That said, Mintworks is a gem of a game. It's a worker placement game to where it's a 1 to 4 player game. Actually 1 to 5. I think you can play 5 if you have the expansion, the cooperative expansion. But it's a fantastic game. Basically, you're doing worker placement. I think it's one of the smoothest worker placement mechanics that I've seen in nearly any worker placement game I've played. Maybe just short of something like Raiders of was it? Oh my gosh, what was it? Raiders of the North Sea. I think Raiders of the North Sea kind of helped innovate the worker placement. It may not have been the first one to do it, but it's the first one that I recognize that did it. But Mintworks, before Raiders of the North Sea, Mintworks was definitely one. And to clarify, Raiders of the North Sea, you put the worker there, you do a thing, and later on you take the worker away, you do a thing. I think that's very cool and very innovative. Mintworks, literally you put your worker in a spot, and it blocks the spot, so you have to pay for it. It blocks the spot, and it's your money that you're putting out. And then at the end, once all the spots are blocked, then you just literally clear them all out, and then you give everybody their money, their income for the round, and then you move on. And now all of a sudden you have a clear avenue to do your actions, and like that just flows so smoothly. I don't know, it's just something about that. It just feels so good. Outside of me gushing about the whole worker placement flowing very well with Mintworks, I think it has some great combinations. I think the combinations in this game are very great. They're really well thought out, and they're very considering how the company went afterwards. Very unfortunate that this was, it's a blessing and a curse depending on how you want to look at it. It's a good and bad thing, because the combinations are very solid, the combinations are very good, to the point to where if somebody gets a certain combination when you're playing, they're probably going to win the game. because you're only playing to like 7 or 8 or 9. You're not playing to that high of a point count, and it's very straightforward to get points. Like every card you get is probably worth at least 1 point. There's some cards that are worth 3 points, and there's some strategies, some combinations of cards you can get that are just basically they're worth 0 points initially, but then after 2 turns they're worth like 7 points by themselves. It's quite crazy. It's quite nuts. But with that said, Mint works very great worker placement game. I can gush on it on and on and on. The one thing I will say about this though is, player be warned, if you do get this game, if you do play it, do not play it more than 3 times in a row. If you play it more than 3 times, playing it 3 times is pushing it. If you play it more than 2 times in a row, unfortunately, you'll start seeing the mechanics in their raw form, and the game seems very plain and flat and simple. So if you want to keep the spark going, play it twice, but don't play any more than that, Play it twice, don't play more than that. Good game though, and also it fits in the Mint 10. I don't know how available this game is though, given that the company is no longer with us. So if you're not able to find a copy, my apologies. If you can find a copy, definitely pick it up. I think it's a great game. All right, and the last ones I kept last because they have to be on the list, of course, but I wanted to kind of keep these at the end. And as you can see, there's more games in there, there's more stuff in there. This is for the small box, sorry, not small box big games. This is for the small but mighty video that I'm doing here. But these last two are Agropolis and Sprawlopolis. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing those right. These 2 games, I think, it would be a crime if I had a game, or if I had a list like this of small but mighty games and I did not include either of these. It's also slightly a crime that I'm not including a game like Rove, which is actually in this bag over here, and Ragemore, and to some degree Circle the Wagon and Food Chain. Basically any game made by nearly any game made by Button Shy Games probably deserves to be on this list. Although to be fair, I have a lot of Button Shy games, and I will say that a lot of their early games are pretty bad, so maybe I don't want to give it that much credit. So a lot of their later stuff, a lot of the recent stuff they've been putting out has been pretty, like, hit after hit, so I'll give them that. But I will say for Sprawlopolis and Agropolis and the rest of these that I'm kind of bringing on, just latching onto it, these 2 specifically are very, very, very in-depth, like city building, kind of city planning puzzle games, and it's really cool. It's fascinating how much variety it gives you in just like 18 or 20 cards, whatever's in those little wallets. I will say that the biggest drawback for both of these games is that they are very, very, very thinking intensive, which is not a bad thing inherently speaking. But boy, does it hurt my brain after playing like sitting down and really trying to win a game of Sprawlopolis. I just hurt mentally afterwards, because it's like, I had to think about so much and had to say, okay, if I do this, it's gonna cause that, and because of that, I need to do this, and if I do this, then that, then I can do this on top, and then next to that, and then wait, if I do that, then this happens, and I get a bonus for it. It's just so much to keep track of. It's to the point where I feel like I need a spreadsheet. Like, I literally need to bring up a spreadsheet to keep track of what's happening when I play this game, which I think is fantastic for a game this small, giving me that much of a workout, mental workout, from trying to do the puzzle and trying to be successful, and also to have variety in it too. Oh my gosh, it's just like so many firing on nearly all cylinders. So the biggest negative to this game is that it's quite a brain burner game, but I will say that that's a good thing, because it means that I'll play it once and then stay away from it and then play it again, and I'll have like that brand new feeling to it. So since I am talking about these 2, they're virtually the same game with different themes and different settings. You can combine the 2, and I think there's another one that I don't have. I think there's 2 more. There's one that combines everything. I think I have that one in here, and then there's another like city one. I don't remember what it was. So don't quote me on that, but go Google it, you'll find it. It's a pretty well-known series, Sprawlopolis at least, and I would recommend both of these. Now, as far as the rest of these, since I have them up here, I'm going to talk about them. Ragemore, great game. I played it too many times. I feel like I figured it out, so that's unfortunate, but I still enjoyed the journey. Solo game. Oh, these are 1 to 2 players, by the way. Rove, solo only game. Very much brain burner in the same sense as Sprawlopolis and Agropolis is. But I will say that I feel like this is nice to have an additional brain burner puzzle, just in case I accidentally figure out how to play those 2. Circle the Wagon, I haven't played it yet, but I've heard really good things about it. Has a solo mode. Is it 1 player only? No, yeah, has a solo mode. I never played it. Food Chain Island. Food Chain Island. I've tried to play this, and man, does it hurt my head when I try to play it. So like, it's good that we have all these brain burner small games. But I will say, if I had to choose between all these, I would definitely stick with the originals, the original two. And these are nice to haves, but this one and this one are definitely great ones to kind of go for. Okay. So that's going to be it for this whole entire list. I'm going to put everything back in a little bag so you can kind of prove that this all fits in the bag. Inside of there I have Grove, I have Hive, and I think that's it. Grove and Hive are the last two in there that didn't make the list. Oh, Love Letter, Batman Love Letter. But yeah, this is all the games in there. Just throw it all in and zip it all back up, and it all fits in a little bag. So there we go. So there's the small but mighty list. So that's gonna be it. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of some of the games that we talked about here. Let me know if there's any other small games that you would like to kind of throw into the list. I did keep these games in relative to the games that I keep in this bag. There are some other games that I would put on the list like this, but I don't carry them around with me. And we're trying to do the 10 small but mighty type games. So, you know, because I'm trying to keep the list very specific, these are games that I literally actually do in real life carry around with me in my car when I go to places, just so I have a board game or two. So this is why a lot of those made that list, and a lot of those in the bag I would have put on a list too if I had some space, but I didn't. So anyway, so thank you all very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you all whenever.